It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Flying down from Nova Scotia today.
This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds.
I have a dream that all men are created equal.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
What's up, Doom Nation? We are back once again, and you are listening to the Two Doom Men podcast. As always, it's Skaggs and the Captain. And how you doing today, Skaggs? What do we got on the agenda?
The doomed agenda. I'm doing a little bit better than I was doing Saturday night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tonight, friends, we're going to tell you a little story about our night out in New York City on Saturday. What was it? The 24th, maybe?
Yeah.
We're going to tell you a little bit of story about that. It is going to apply to a larger political sphere. We're going to mainly talk about that. And then perhaps we'll talk about the war in Ukraine and some new developments, and things are amping up on the other side of the globe.
Italy, the Ukraine, everybody's going crazy around the world.
Yeah. So let's set the stage here. Let's rewind a couple weeks. I got an email from Metallica, right? My actual favorite brand of all time.
Yes.
And it says, we're going to play a show in Manhattan, in New York City, in Central Park. I've been to many Metallica shows before. They're a great fucking time. You've been there with me a couple times, Cap.
Yes.
So I text Captain, a couple of our friends. I go, hey, let's go. Let's go to, how many times are you going to get to see Metallica in Central Park? Now, before I get into this whole thing, in retrospect, it's my fault. I didn't do much more research on the event itself. Because who was throwing the event? Why, they are called the Global Citizen Festival. Now, essentially the most diametrically opposed organization that could possibly exist to the Two Doom Men is the Global Citizen Festival. So, what is the Global Citizen Festival, and what are they about? Well, let's go to their website. We envision a world free from extreme poverty now. We are an action platform dedicated to achieving the end of extreme poverty, powered by a community of millions of global citizens who believe in one world, one people, where everyone has an equal chance to thrive. This is our world, and the actions of one can have a profound impact on many. That's why we rally around the critical issues of climate change, poverty, and inequality. This is our generation's moment. It's in our hands. What are global
So
citizens?
if you are a fan of the show, you already know
Where this is
what
going.
type of group global citizens are.
What are global citizens? Global citizens are action takers and impact makers. Our mission is to end extreme poverty worldwide now. Our voices inspire action to defend the planet, defeat poverty, and demand equity. We post, tweet, message, vote, sign, and call to influence leaders and citizens to act. The collective actions of our community can make a difference to end extreme poverty now. All right, so let's take a look real quick at what are some of the issues of the global citizen. If you'll entertain me here for a second.
This is, if I'm going to guess before we get into it, this is basically our issues. It's going to be a drop down menu, and it's going to be the equivalent to that meme where it's the NPC gray guy, and they're waving COVID, and they're waving the vaccine, and they're waving Ukraine. You know what I mean? It's like the new download. I'm pretty sure those are going to be each of the issues.
Yeah, we're going to get the files, I guess you could say. So you're not far off. Defeat poverty, defend the planet, demand equity. I'm going to click here on
this
demand
equity one, man. People really need to learn what equity is.
So during the concert,
equity is not equality.
Yeah, which is funny because earlier on in there about us, they say that they're here for, they are against inequality. Inequality and equity are two different things. Mm-hmm. It was funny at the concert, Cap. You kept saying, I kept hearing you in the background being like, equity is not equality. I kept hearing you say that. And And people were not exactly thrilled with us. But let's go to
Well,
demand.
we'll tell that story.
Yeah, we will.
We'll tell of
wanna
our
set-
tale.
Yeah, we'll tell it. I just want to set the stage a little bit here for you to kind of understand what this is about. So demand equity, worth noting here, man, like this website sucks even. Like what you need to know. Let's scroll down. Take action. All right, I want to take action. I want to demand equity for women. Let's go. Empower girls now. What does this mean? What can I do? The website even works here. All right, empower girls now. Now another, why we're working on this, demand equity. Every person everywhere should have an equal chance to live up to their full potential. That sounds pretty nice. That's actually equality. Everyone has an equal chance to make something of themselves, right? How do you get to that? You have to live in a free society which values human liberty and etc. That's not equity, that's equality. But here they're using the word equity and, you know, trying to conflate it with equality to some extent. What do you need to know? Again, exact same thing here. What can we actually do? Like what does this thing do? Like what can we actually do? Let's click here. We could sign a petition. Urge leaders to invest in sexual and reproductive health now. Wow, that sounds nice. What does that mean? Today, billions of women around the world face significant barriers in accessing their essential sexual and reproductive health and rights, including access to menstrual products, contraceptives, safe and legal abortion, obstetric and gynecological services, and even soap. Okay, so now soap, soap. Essentially, what does this mean? What does this mean? Abortion. We need more abortions. Abortions are the most important thing in the world. If you're not for abortions, you're not for women. Equality for women is abortions. We have to kill children in order for there to be equality for women, essentially. So like that's where this place is. I could go to all the other issues and whatnot. Climate change is more of the same shit. You know what they're going to be about. Go ahead, Cap.
It's the way they word this though is such alphabet soup.
Yeah.
You have to be, is there issues out there? Yes. Are there women's rights issues out there? Yes. But there needs to be more access to abortions and contraceptives. It's out there. I mean, unless you start doing loadout drops, like you call Joe Biden, I'm about to have the train ran on me, drop, a loadout of condoms and Plan Bs and referrals to Planned Parenthood. I don't know what much more we could do. There's Planned Parenthoods across the country. There's places that give out free contraceptives, aka condoms and stuff like that. You have your own responsibility, but I know we don't consider that at all.
Yeah, that's not even a thought here in this equation.
So now, okay, I get it. The Supreme Court just overturned Roe v. Wade, but I'm pretty sure that the Global Festival, what's the full name of them?
Global Citizens
Festival has been campaigning for this for years and years while Roe v. Wade wasn't overturned. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, they were. They've been around for a little bit.
Yeah. So what have you guys really been doing? You know what I mean? Like just this year, fine. Yeah, you took one on the chin with losing Roe v. Wade. But before this, how much more can we get? How much more can we give?
Yeah.
How much more is there until this problem solved? What is the percentage of women? What is the section of America that women don't have the rights to get to contraceptives they need? And you know what I'm saying? Like, what state is that? Is it Alabama? Like, not even to throw Alabama under the bus or anything like that. Like, it's just nice headlines and no true information.
Yeah.
Who doesn't have access to safe and effective abortions? Show me the state, show me the percentage of people, show me the actual problem, and then we talk.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You're making kind of like the classical liberal, I guess, argument in a sense. I think this is way more nefarious than it is. You guys know my position has changed on abortion, right? I mean, they're not even dealing with like the moral argument in any way whatsoever. It's a foregone conclusion already. Abortion's good. It's a woman's right. I mean, it's not even like that common of a thing that happens, right? But it's like the number one issue. It's sold as an attack on women's rights. The same people would have probably advocated that you lose your job if you're a woman because you didn't get the vaccine. That's not an attack somehow on women's rights, right? But this is. They don't grapple with the aspect of it being like another person is involved in it. And I don't mean the man, I mean the baby inside. That's another human being that has rights, right? So this doesn't even attempt to grapple with that whole moral situation. It's just foregone conclusion. Abortion good. Anyone who says otherwise is some sort of evil man who's trying to attack my rights as a woman. And when women speak out about it, they're not real women or whatever.
And I still want to find this part of the Constitution where, and I know this is a very negative, bad thing to say, easily to get, a strike or something, but women's right to abortion is a constitutional right. But my right to own guns is not a constitutional right. It's not an absolute right. I don't get me wrong. I for somebody who is a little bit more pro-choice than you are, obviously, I'm not the one trying to take away abortions here. I could live with or without them. Don't really want to live with them if they're, at the 9-month mark. But and I do believe women have the right to healthcare. And if you want to include abortions in there, fine. But this whole constitutional right shit, enough. Enough.
Yeah, I get your points, right? And you're kind of also making the logical fallacy that they make. And this is another concept of the show, and one of the things I got while we were there listening. We don't have any positive rights. That doesn't exist. Yeah. You only have negative rights. The Constitution is founded on negative rights, which means the government can't take this thing away from you. The government can't censor your speech. They can't infringe on your right to bear arms. You don't, it doesn't say we're going to give you a gun, or the government doesn't give you this right. You have that right. It's naturally inherent to you being a human, or it's from God. I think we've covered this before again. And the government can't take those things away from you. You don't have a right to anything. Why? Because things need to be made, need to be gotten, need to be created by someone else. You could share, you can volunteer, you could do all those things if you want, if you choose, but you have no right to something else, including an abortion, right? You don't have a right to an abortion. Why? Because it's, first of all, there's another person involved. Second of all, someone has to do the act of the abortion. Even if you want to get down to that point, there's some labor involved in the process, right? And I mean labor like birthing labor. I mean work, like the doctor who went to school and has to learn how to do the thing. They don't just give away something to you for free. Let's get into the concert, because that'll tie into some of the points.
Yes.
So long story short, my aunt, God bless her soul, she was there. She ended up getting us into the VIP area, which maybe Cap, you tell a little bit of experience about that, because that was pretty cool. We'll start off with.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, rubbing shoulders with New York's elite. We took a dirty bus down and drank road sodas, aka vodka clubs, on the bus. And Skaggs' aunt says, I have a driver. Well, I'm going to take you to a back entrance. Skaggs' brother-in-law, Danny, had already tried going through the front gate and was like, this line is insane. So thank you to Skaggs' aunt. She got us these VIP passes. And we come in behind the stage and we go into this tent, and it is New York's wealth. Yeah. This is New York's top echelon. I live on the Upper East Side. I have servants, New Yorkers. And the
servants were masked. It was worth pointing out. Everyone who worked there was forced to probably wear a mask.
I don't have anything other than the guy who shot me the dirty looks over the Obama comment. I didn't have a problem with any of them, but these are definitely the people that, when Chuck Schumer's up for re-election and you're like, how is this man getting any votes? Who is voting for this man? It's these people.
It's
these people.
So a couple observations. Go ahead.
The food was all vegetarian, vegan.
That's going to be some of my observations. Yeah.
Which I don't mind, because I do have vegetarian days. Plant-based proteins just better for me to lose weight. It's just my body type.
So it wasn't.
They didn't
vegan.
Tell us
it wasn't vegan. Right, that's true. They didn't tell us, but it wasn't vegan. It was Impossible meat.
Yes,
they were serving there.
Which I don't eat that stuff. I'll eat vegetables all day. The Impossible stuff, I don't. That's the type of stuff Bill Gates wants me to eat, and
correct. It's Bill Gates. Yeah, Bill Gates probably made the menu for this event, but
yeah. The bar was cool. They had a very good drink options, but when I tell you, once again, New York's elite, they had me and Skaggs, we go out, we review beer, we review booze, kind of know what we're talking about in that area. Never heard of this vodka a day in my life. Never even seen it in the stores, which just makes me think it's more, top shelf elitist up there.
Yeah.
So what was your take? And then we'll get into like when the people started talking.
So a couple of nitpicking items. This is supposed to be, as you've seen, this is about climate change primarily. It's about climate change.
Oh,
right?
yes.
So we had to print out the tickets on pieces of paper.
Climate change.
That's not very climate change friendly, right? And nowadays you almost could get a ticket on your phone for anything, but you couldn't do that.
Yep.
The drinks were all plastic cups. There was hundreds of thousands of them all over the place, right? That's not very climate change friendly. It was pretty fun though. Drinks were free in the area, so that was good. Again, thank you to my aunt who hooked us up with that. So then we decided.
I thoroughly enjoyed the VIP time.
Yeah, no, that was cool.
We had.
That was cool. And we talked to one lady about the food. She was asking us if we liked it or whatnot.
Yeah.
She was nice. It was kind of weird, maybe how interested she was and how much we liked the food. I was a little skeptical of that, but she was nice. And then we decided we're gonna go over to the concert, see what's going on. So we decided to walk over, and Mariah Carey is performing. And it's nice, we're trying to get in, etc. My aunt's again trying to get us into like VIP area,
closer to the
area. And then I started noticing that this is not your typical concert, right?
No.
Now, I don't know. I don't really hate Mariah Carey or anything, but she makes a couple comments that are kind of like, pro the woke agenda, pro globalism. She finishes her set, and this is the first time now we've seen like the transition from one set to another, like from one artist to another.
Well, sorry to interrupt you. We did see Chuck Schumer talk.
That's true. Right.
Beforehand, while we were in the VIP, and we saw him on the big screen, but we kind of just tuned him out because we were still pretty enamored by free booze, free food. We're in the VIP area. But I do remember he said something about climate change, and I said something about Obama's waterfront property. And this guy whipped his head around and gave me such a dirty look, man. It was fantastic. He was to his core hurt. He's probably on his podcast right now.
Oh,
this MAGA right-wing white supremacist.
Yep. This white rage made its way into our event. Yeah, definitely. So that's right. Yeah, Chuck Schumer was there. And essentially what's going on here is an artist plays or does their set, and for like 20 minutes to half an hour, and then basically after that for another 20 minutes to a half an hour in between sets, politicians or activists come out on the stage, and they essentially just spew every woke left-wing globalist talking point or agenda item you could possibly imagine, like this stuff. Climate change and equity and all these things. Again, equity doesn't actually mean equality. Equity essentially means communism. It essentially means we're going to redistribute all wealth that exists and make everybody even in that sort of regard. It doesn't mean everyone starts off as equal in terms of like your negative rights, and then whoever has based on a merit-based system does well and people don't do well. No, it's communism. It's Marxism. There was a couple of politicians from Africa, and I found this part extremely interesting. Now, one of them triggered me a bit, and he was talking about like water. I don't know if you remember this part, Cap. This was right after Mariah Carey, and he was talking about how water is an essential human right, right? Like water is a basic human.
I already know where you're going. Okay.
Again, I don't understand what that means exactly. Like, what do you mean water is a right? Like,
so that means water could be taken away from me then.
I guess so. Yeah.
No rights are absolute, as President Biden would say.
Says, right. Now, I don't understand what that exactly means, right? I guess waters are right. Like if I walk to a park and there's like a stream, I cut my hands and I put some water and then I drink it. No one's gonna stop me, right? But at the same time, like I had to like do a little labor, right? I had to walk, put one foot in front of the other. I had to put my hands in a cup. I had to get some water, put it in my hand. Like there was some labor that occurred for me to get that water. This politician was talking about how they need money. Like the government needs more money in Africa, and some of the wealthy nations need to give them money in order to build more infrastructure because water is a right. Now, I don't understand what that means because I thought you just said that water was a right. So if it's a right, then why do we need to pay for it in order for people to get it? Like it's just a right. Everyone just owns it, right? Their whole like circular logic is so flawed because no, it's not a right. there's plumbers in Africa, right? They're going to need to like lay the pipes. They're going to have to get paid, right? There's going to have to be someone who like comes up with the infrastructure. There's labor. There's things that need to be done. No one just like exists and is like, that's it. Feed me, give me water, give me food. I'll lay back and feed me grapes.
Klaus Schwab's pod people want that. They're the Wally people.
And maybe this sounds like mean, right? I've been to Africa. I've spoken to African people in Africa. And one of the things I remember the most clear of any time I got into a political discussion with anybody in Africa is what was like their biggest problem with Africa. And it was always the government's corrupt, right? That was like their number one thing. I recently watched a video from this other YouTube channel, which is great. It's called Indigo Traveler. He went to Lagos, Nigeria, gigantic city in Africa. I think like 25, 30 million people. They have water problems. I think one of the things in this concert was mentioning Lagos, Nigeria, and like every person that this guy Nick from Indigo Traveler was talking to, like, what do you think about Lagos? They all hate the government, right? The government's corrupt. The government this, the government that. The government sucks. Here you have like people from those governments are like, give us the government more money, give us the government more power, because we need to provide people their basic essential right of water. But then when you go talk to like the actual people on the ground, they fucking hate these same people, the same government. So the whole thing is essentially, in my opinion, right? This whole thing is a scam. It's trying to get people. Good.
I'm glad you said that, because I was just going to say, okay, we need to raise money to give people in Africa water, right? We need to build the infrastructure. It is 2022. I am 33 years old. I remember as far back as maybe being 3 or 4 years old, charitable organizations going to Africa, raising money for the exact same issue. How, if this little device in my pocket right here can book me an airplane to go to Africa, I could buy tools to lay down pipe off this phone. I could do whatever I wanted. I could run the entire construction company that builds this infrastructure off this little device. How there isn't water from coast to coast, north to South Africa, flowing through Africa by now is beyond me. There has to be a glitch in the matrix somewhere. And you just pointed out where that glitch is. It's because these politicians come, oh, we need water. Everybody feels bad. They donate $20 million and $19 million goes in their pocket and $1 million goes to this little piss poor infrastructure plan.
Right. And that's essentially what this is. It's politicians, asking for like a redirection of the wealthier.
Son of a bitch.
You're right.
So I just smashed. Sorry, Doom Nation. I just smashed my knee on the pole underneath this table, underneath my desk.
It'll be all right,
God damn, that hurts.
Yeah, we're gonna have to take up a collection now for you. Maybe I hope you have universal healthcare or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
all right, I'm sorry. Go on.
I'm not trying to make the point that like people in Africa don't need help. No, they do. Like if you watch this episode of Indigo Traveler in Lagos, Nigeria, like they're not in a good situation. They're very poor, and a lot of them are suffering, right? And if you actually watch this episode that I'm talking about, Nick, the guy, meets with like a local community leader in the area who's trying to like educate the kids and help them with certain things. And Nick goes ahead and starts a fundraiser. They through the video, they make a lot of money. They give it to the guy who's like a community leader, and they start like a school and they start doing things. That has nothing to do with the government. Voluntarism and like voluntarily choosing to like help your community and do something is great, right? Because now you're invested in it. You're not doing it because like you've been elected to some sort of office or you have some sort of political agenda. You just want to see people do better. So you're invested in the actual thing. That's not what this event was. This event was Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, who we're going to get into in a little bit. People from Africa, politicians from Africa that are, spinning this stuff. It's all just scam after scam. We need more government. We need larger government to fix the world's problems. Ultimately, again, it's called the Global Citizen Festival. Globalism is a thing. Essentially, they want to, it's always like everything they always propose is the answer is always more government. Yeah. There's this problem. How do we fix
somehow
it? More bigger government, more. Ultimately, with the end goal, there being one government for the entire world that rules over everything. And you have basically no rights. If you don't think you have rights now in America, right, because like the behemoth of the federal government's too large, imagine if the whole fucking planet was one government, right? If there's one thing I'll remember from Anatomy of the State by Murray Rothbard, right? It's one of the first things. It's like, you are not the state, and you never will be the state. As you could be in the government, but you're still never the state. So the whole we the people thing is a fallacy. Now, it's already hard enough to like be the state in America. Again, imagine if you make that the size of the whole planet, like the government rules over the whole planet. You have nothing. You have no say in anything whatsoever. You're just a little ant, and the queen rules over all, and you're just one more cog in the system. I've been talking for a while. Go ahead, buddy.
No, it's I want to get into Nancy. So but yes, I mean, in between each set, it was just propaganda time. None of them had anything of importance to say. None of them had anything new to say. It was just toe the line.
Yeah, toe the line.
Toe the line.
So we decide, well, we don't really decide. My aunt's really trying to get us like into a great spot, for Metallica coming up at the end of the show. So she asked, she kind of gets us like right in front of the stage. It's dope. We're there for like 5 minutes. Guy asks us, he's like, you guys got to leave. You can't stay here. So we're pretty bummed out. We walk in front of the stage. We're pushed off to the side. And we're kind of like waiting there for a little bit. I had a feeling that things were not going to go our way just because it's us.
Yeah.
I said, let's go back to the general admission. You guys don't want to listen to me, right? Because I'm like,
let's cut
our losses now. Let's cut our losses now. Let's just go back to general admission instead of staying here. Right before Metallica comes on, another round of speeches happens, and a guy essentially kicks us out of the area, pushes all of us off to the side. And I want to know what happened to you, because now me and the captain get separated. I'm not sure exactly what occurred.
Hold on. So we're in that first area. After we left general admission, your aunt got us into like that press booth. And before we get thrown out of there, so there was like the big stage that people performed on. And then there was this long walkway to this circular stage, basically in the middle of the crowd. And that's where people were giving speeches. That's where like the lead singer would go out there and rock out or have like a guitar solo or something. And I see this little old woman in all white, and the lights are shining on her. And I call it out right away. I go, is that fucking Nancy Pelosi? And boom, the speech starts. And so now we're not really in the crowd. So we kind of get a little rowdy. And I shoot off a few boos. Friend of ours shoots off a few boos. And she starts talking. And then the boos come across the entire audience. And we'll play this little clip for you. I wonder if like you could hear our boos like start it, because like we were booing early on.
Ours specifically.
We know that climate change is a global crisis, but we can start addressing it by responding it at home.
I couldn't talk.
As Speaker of the House, I am here to thank you for your
Nancy Pelosi.
determination.
Why is everybody booing?
Thanks to your help, that the United States recently enacted historic climate legislation, which will be a game changer. It will slash carbon pollution by 40% by 2030. It will give a historic $370 billion to fight the climate crisis.
So
that didn't even really do like the boos.
Justice,
She got
yeah.
justice. Yeah.
it didn't. I mean, in my real quick, my takeaway from that, my white pill of the night was that she got booed off the stage.
Yeah.
Right? Now, there definitely was a little bit to it that at this point, people had enough probably of like lectures and speeches about the woke stuff, and people were there to see Metallica like us. So that has something to do with it as well. But without a doubt, this crowd for that sort of event, for everyone to boo Nancy Pelosi, she is not popular, even amongst the left, even amongst the shit libs she's popular with. But amongst like the most radical people on the left, and then the people who are still like, somewhat good on the left, she is not popular at all.
No, she's really not. And I think it was they did go longer. They pushed back Metallica's start time because of her.
Yeah.
And then we had the message from President Joe Biden.
That's right.
Which
I
was
forgot about
exactly the same thing she said, which was exactly the same thing the person before her said. So yeah, it was interesting, but I think it was just such poor timing. Like, this was an all-day event. If you were there all day, and if you're there all day to see Metallica, nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to hear Nancy Pelosi stumble her drunk funky language before Metallica plays. Okay, so now to my end of the story. We are off to the side, like Skaggs was saying, and we got pushed off to the side again. And as we're walking towards this new area, I notice a gap in the fence, and right past that gap is general admission, where Skaggs wanted to be. And I jump through and I go, "Hey guys," and this security guard loses her shit and tells me she's going to throw me out. So I just backed up into the crowd, never to be seen from
like
her
Homer Simpson
again.
into the bushes.
Yes,
Yeah.
basically what I did. And so now Nancy's speech is over. They weren't even setting up for Metallica while she was fucking talking. They still had to keep, it was just silence and people waiting for Metallica to come to stage. So now I'm making so if from my point of view, Skaggs and our friends went left and there's a lot of fencing in front of me. So I'm going right now to see if there's another section of the fence that we could go through, or I could try and get you in, or I could get out and be with everyone. And I'm looking and there's all these gated areas, and who is standing 6-7 feet in front of me
Within social distancing?
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi standing right there. All that separates me is this little gate, and there is the devil's dish rag, Mrs.
The third person
Tito's.
in line to the throne, within
Yes.
6 feet of one of the doomed men. And I mean, and so let me give you real quick my perspective, because I was actually on the opposite side of this little area. I was in the same little tiny like fenced off area that Nancy Pelosi was in, and I didn't realize you were standing there. I saw you, and I started walking over to you to see if I could jump the fence and get over to where you were, and I almost walked into her.
Yeah.
Literally. It wasn't until that moment where like a security guard was like, "Hey, you can't come over here," or whatever. And then I was like, "Holy shit!" I was like, "All right, let me not get in trouble."
Secret Service,
right?
Yeah,
We're not terrorists as much as they want to claim, that we are. Theoretically, something could have happened there because her security was very light, which was odd. And the fact that like I and you got that close is bizarre to an extent. So I don't know how that was happening. There was security at the event, like we had to go through metal detectors and stuff like that. So I just, I thought about asking for a selfie or something like that. But I'm like, you know what? Let me just walk away.
Well, I kind of did. So I gotta say, like, we talk about these politicians and we criticize them, and God rest his soul, our friend from James Justin, sorry, excuse me, Justin from Cannabis and Combat. He chased down the mayor or governor of Nevada, which was not a smart idea, and we don't, I knew going that route was the wrong route, especially for the third most powerful person in the country or the world, you want to say. And it was such a weird, surreal moment because I'm like, I got to do something. I got to do something for my principles. I got to do something for the show, something. And like in my head, I'm like, do I just, hey, fuck you? Or do I be like, stop sending money to Ukraine? Or like, you know what I mean? Like, do I talk policy? Do I try and debate her on something? And like all these thoughts are running through your head. And I got my phone ready and I just screamed out, "Hey, Nancy." And what you don't see on my phone is you just see her waving, is these two cops, both to my shoulders, perked up. And like, I instantly like felt like a target. And so I kind of just like took the picture. Yeah. And then I took this, this was this guy right here with the hat behind me was the security guard closest to me. And when I said, "Hey, Nancy," like, that's like, he was the first one to like look and be ready.
Yeah, I actually do recognize that guy. Sorry for putting this face out there. Maybe I'll blur that out. But yeah, actually, when she left later on, I walked right in front of me, and he was kind of like looking at people's hands to see what
Yeah.
was going on. So there was a little security, but it was just weird how she was just kind of out there in the open.
Yeah. It was, I mean, I feel like I botched it. I wish I said something, you know what I mean? But it was weird. It was kind of like, like when the Joker says, like, oh, I'm just a dog chasing a car. I wouldn't know what to do if I got one. Like, we finally got like a politician of substance in our grasp. What I should have said would be like, hey, tune into the Two Doom Men. You'll fucking love it.
You had to take a page out of like Alex Stein's book and do a culture jamming or something.
Yeah.
Like that. But at the same time, like, you weren't prepared. Alex Stein goes
No.
into those things prepared. He's trying to
Yeah.
fuck with people.
I mean, I
We didn't know
literally,
that we were going to be 6 feet away from Nancy
Yeah.
Pelosi. We were both there to see Metallica.
yeah, I'm like, oh, I got to find my friends because this awesome concert's about to start. And Nancy Pelosi lands on my lap. Like, holy
Yeah.
shit, what do I do now?
Yeah. So, I mean,
I got to say, though, very underwhelming. She's probably as big as my mother. My
Yeah, she's
mother's
small.
like 5'1". She's just this tiny little old lady.
yeah.
And to have that much evil in that little body
Yeah.
is,
All right.
that those lizard people are they're built different.
Yeah.
They're
they
built
are.
different.
It doesn't, looks don't always, mean anything, especially nowadays. You could be an evil person and you could look, like a little feeble lady.
Yeah,
So,
you
so
look
my
like,
main takeaway,
Bill
man, I
Gates.
be honest with you, like I was pretty depressed, like towards the end.
Oh, I know
about the
you were
whole thing.
heartbroken.
I went there to have a good time, hang out with the guys, headbang, listen to some tunes, listen to Metallica. And it's not so much that we got like kicked out of like the good areas to stand. It was the whole like message of the whole thing. It's
Yep.
And this is like this woke shit at its worst, in my opinion. I was telling you earlier today.
We walked into the Wolf's Den, the Viper Pit, whatever you want to call it, like without doing the research. We were just, I want to go see Metallica, not like this is going to be some woke garbage.
Like you go to an event to have a good time and to hang out with people and then like hear music you like and whatnot, see a show, something that entertains you. What this essentially was a propaganda fest that they then use to like, they essentially like either lure you in or use a thing that you like in order to like get you to hear their message or whatnot. Like you like Metallica, right? So you go to this thing thinking you're going to see Metallica, and what do you get? Essentially like an equal amount of time of like political messaging. And if you think like, I don't know, we're conspiracy theorists or like we're just exaggerating, I mean, you had Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and other politicians
Central
at this
Park,
event
yeah.
in Central Park, like telling you all of their woke agenda points. Even President Biden gave a speech on the screen. He wasn't there in person, but
Yeah.
and they're all saying essentially the same thing, like repetition, telling the crowd the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. What just sucked about it is like you're just there for the music, you're there for the good time, not to hear all this shit. Like when we want to like talk about politics or hear about politics, I go on Twitter, I do a
Yes.
podcast, I listen to a podcast. So that's why I was like legitimately upset.
That's why, that's why I was so tongue-tied when I saw her, because my mission was let's rock out to Metallica.
Right.
This is going to
Same
be
thing.
awesome. And now I run into her. Like,
Yeah.
it's like running into your boss at the club. Like, I'm here to have fun. Like, oh, the one person I don't want to see right now is here.
Yeah. So I mean, it was a buzzkill, to say the least. Then the fact, on top of the fact that we kind of got like pushed around by security, and we were kind of like off center, so I couldn't really hear Metallica as well when they came out.
Yeah.
The whole thing was
I heard them just fine.
Yeah,
But
because you
know
were
what though? What
center.
sucked though is I got into general admission and I was able to see them, and I could have got as close as I pushed my way to, but doing it alone
Right.
sucked.
Yeah. Again, because while you're there like to share the experience with your friends and whatnot. You're there for the music and that whole atmosphere of it. The politics and all that annoying stuff takes away from it. I don't know, man. You were in the general admission crowd. I didn't see the energy. I really didn't. Where I was standing, which was kind of off to the side, there was a lot of like NYPD and there was a lot of like special needs people. So obviously they're not going to be headbanging or anything crazy like that.
Yeah.
But looking into the GA crowd, I didn't really see much energy, man. I don't know.
I don't like, I wish you were right. We should have stayed exactly where we were from the start, because I feel like the people that were up front to the gate were headbanging, because I saw, the hands going. Where I was, it was just a bunch of people on their phones. There was one pretty cool dude that was just headbanging and rocking out with me, but he was, some random guy. There was energy, but I mean, my last experience at Metallica was standing on the 50-yard line of MetLife Stadium as we basically reenacted the Battle of the Bastards to, you know, for whom the bell tolls.
Right. There wasn't that
So-
classic Metallica
No, there was not.
energy that comes
There,
with a
there
concert
definitely
like that.
it was a downgrade. I actually was looking over one of my old videos, and they were like, when they were singing, they were like, "We need to hear you." Like they made like this reference when, like, Metallica made this reference when they were on stage, was like, "I said, hey," you know, and they weren't getting the same response they get. That's for sure.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to plug my computer in here. The battery's about to die.
All
Yeah.
good.
I mean, I guess that's the territory that it comes with, right? You know, there was a white pill from the crowd, in my opinion,
Yeah.
that they booed Nancy Pelosi, but then there was a black pill where there just was no energy at a Metallica concert. There was, you know, I know a lot of people didn't get in. The whole thing was very like disorganized and a mess. The whole event in general.
Gee.
And you know,
Politicians
I mean,
saying, "Give us money, run an operation that doesn't go to plan."
right? You know, isn't that a great microcosm of centralization in large government? Like it doesn't work well. It's not efficient, right?
Just is-
So
they can't even put a fucking concert together. Here's a stage, gather around, someone's gonna sing. Can't do it.
these are the people that
Can't do
provide
it.
your basic water rights or whatever the fuck
Yeah.
shit they want to sell you. So that was it. I think we will. I think we made a pact today that we're going to go to a revenge Metallica concert. That's just
Yeah.
Metallica, and we'll have a good time to that one. So
Well, unless they team up with like Motley Crue or something, that'd be dope. Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what happens. What's up, everyone? It's Skaggs, and I'm here to tell you about a new partner of ours, the Patriot Cigar Company. Now, I don't know about you, but I like to casually enjoy a good cigar with a nice glass of bourbon, especially during the fall months. The Patriot Cigar Company just launched their first 5 cigars, including the Hellfire, TNT, Mark 48, and Moab. Each cigar is handmade with premium tobacco that is aged a minimum of 3 years in Nicaragua. The best part about it is that you can go to mypatriotcigars.com and use our promo code DOOMED for 15% off your purchase. So if you're ready to sit back and enjoy a nice cigar around the campfire, head on over to their website and see what they have to offer using the link in our episode description below.
We have a liftoff.
Let's move on to the next story, man. I know that was a little bit of a personal topic, though it was interesting. Made a little bit of news. So about 2 weeks ago now, or maybe a week and a half ago now, you know, the war in Ukraine is still going on. Obviously, we haven't talked about that.
2
much, but
wars.
yeah, still going on. So about 2 weeks ago now, President Vladimir Putin, he announced that he is going to be calling up 300,000 more reserve soldiers, you know, to participate in this special military operation that's going on. So,
And
What
that
does
he
that
would
exactly
use
mean?
nuclear weapons, and he's not bluffing.
yes, he also said if Russia's territorial integrity is threatened, that he will use nuclear weapons to defend that. What does that mean? If anybody tries to invade Russia or attack Russian soil, they'll use nukes, right? And essentially to defend themselves. What does it mean that he's calling up 300,000 reservists? Also, I kind of looked a little bit into this, but that's
It's only been done twice before.
yes, I think probably World War II was one of them.
And
What does that
World War
mean?
One was the other.
Yeah. What does that mean exactly? That essentially means that he's calling into action people who are in the reserve, like literally in the military reserve. Those people will kind of like spell other active duty military members who are like out on a post. Let's say somewhere out in Siberia, you're an active duty military member, you're at your base out in Siberia. Well, now the reserve is going to come in and they're going to spell you. And now you, the battle hardened active duty military service member, will now go to Ukraine and participate in the war there. So you're replacing, you're like relieving people of their posts elsewhere, and they're going to be sending those guys into the war. Another point I want to make is around the same time, about like a couple days before, the Ukrainians actually made some pretty good territory. Like they made some pretty good ground in the war. In like the northeast area in Kharkiv, I believe it's called, they pushed the Russians back like a pretty huge like swath of land. So this is essentially a direct response to like a little tiny win that the Ukrainians made. Putin's like, well, yeah, now we're going to use like our entire military and send them in there.
We
And
will
they know if
crush
you
our
co-
opponents.
yeah, and if you come into our territory, we're going to use nukes on you. So
It's,
what do you think?
you
man?
know,
We haven't talked about this in a while, so I'm interested to see
yeah.
what you're thinking about the whole thing.
I mean, I still feel there's a very deep, deep state swamp aspect to everything going on in Ukraine. Ukraine is where you go, where you launder, the government launders its monies, allegedly, we'll say, fine. And we just keep sending them more and more money. I'm not saying there's not a war going on. It's just there's a different story being told. This is a complete, as far as I'm concerned, a complete propaganda war. Because we watched a video not too long ago, and I wish I'd thought about having you share this beforehand, of people just partying at a club in Kiev, like nothing's going on. This is, if we were to go to CNN right now and take a tour and run into one of the news anchors and ask them, can you give us an update on what's going on in Kiev in the middle of Ukraine? They would tell you, oh, death, blood, gore, it's a full-blown, complete war zone. But there's one club that's still open for business, I guess. People are still going to work. They're not evacuating the country. They're not evacuating the cities. I don't know. There's something fishy about everything that's going on over in Ukraine and this whole war, and and not that I'm pro Russia or pro Putin, but when the whole world and the corporate media and the corporate world tell you Russia man bad, it's probably because Russia's man good. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we go based on what we've learned over the past several years, when the media ultra hates somebody, it's probably because they don't want you to know the real side of the story. They don't want you to know what the real agenda is. So I don't know. I was happy while Ukraine kind of got out of the news. I was being very American with that. Just, I don't hear about it, so it must not be real. But here we are now again, sending them billions more.
Yeah.
And
so,
escalating to possible. I had a funny feeling too. Sorry to interrupt. That the term nuclear was going to be thrown around. I feel like the establishment is pushed into such a corner. I feel like things are on such a brink of change that, like, we couldn't handle like another Iraq war right now, where we're just going to send troops over and it's going to be American soldiers versus ISIS. I think it's such a corrupt and insane playing field, no matter what side of the fence you're on, that, like, war breaks out, you're like, fingers on the button, nukes, fingers on the button.
I
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know what you're saying. I just you're reminding me kind of what Scott Horton said when we saw him in person, where he said, like, who fights the wars? Conservatives do.
yeah,
Right. And the morale definitely is not there to, like, send boots on the ground, probably, especially in something like this. So that probably has something to do with it. It's easier to just send weapons and money and then treat Ukrainians like, cannon fodder in a proxy war than it is like send your actual people.
which America
and then,
is. That's exactly what's going on.
Yeah. Like, it's also an insane proposition to go to war directly with Russia, because nukes could be exchanged, which means essentially the end of the world, probably. Let's
There's one thing that you always bring up, and it's worth talking about. There is absolutely no talk about peace talks.
No, nothing.
And it's very telling. I mean, we know the establishment's real. I mean, I don't even think, like, there's Democrats out there right now that are like, oh no, the establishment's not real. The government's batting 1,000 and telling us the truth.
So let me tell you some stuff I found out today. I don't know if you remember. So back in April, you remember Boris Johnson went to Ukraine, the
Yes.
Prime Minister of England. He was there, like, walking around in the street.
Yeah, in the streets,
suit and
yeah.
tie, and that was really, like,
and a vest,
comical video, like he always has. So I found out today, this is again from Scott Horton and some of his sources, that, like, while that was going on, that was in April, that there were some peace negotiations going on between Ukraine and Russia, separate from NATO, separate from the West. Boris Johnson went there in April and he squashed that shit. And he basically told them, no, like we're not doing any negotiations right now. And if you better pull out of these negotiations. If you don't, then we're not going to send.
We're not going to fund you.
We're not going to send you the weapons, etc. So like Zelensky's hands were kind of tied, and the whole government, they had to stop negotiations. So I don't.
That's
think,
pretty telling,
right? I don't
That's
think
pretty
Vladimir
fucking
Putin
telling.
is a good guy. He's not. Like you're trying to say, you think he's a good guy just because he opposes other bad people. I see him as just another bad guy with his own, interests, right? He's got the interests of his state and his whole scheme going on up against the other, interests of the whole globalist agenda. So I don't think he's a good guy. Let's parry this into like the news that just came out today. All right, here we go. From Reuters, U.S. Congress negotiators set nearly $12 billion in Ukraine aid sources.
And that was my exact tweet of the week.
Negotiate this one right here.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, negotiators of a stopgap spending bill in U.S. Congress have agreed to include nearly $12 billion in new military and economic aid to Ukraine. Sources familiar with the talk said Monday, reflecting continued bipartisan support for the Kyiv movement.
Of course, it's bipartisan.
The wake of Russia's invasion. Something I say all the time. The only thing the Republicans and Democrats actually agree on is more war, more military spending.
For the people who tune in for the conspiracy aspect of this show, I truly just believe that we're sending all this money to Ukraine because in the 4 years that Trump was in office, certain people could not get paid who were promised to get paid. And this is the money laundering scheme to pay those people with interest. I'm not saying, to appease the left. I'm not saying let's not support Ukraine, right? Let's support them. Fine. But can we at least set like a limit? Like, how did it become we are willing every
quarter,
6 weeks, every 3 months to just send a new, larger, unlimited amount of money that we don't have?
Yeah. What you're saying is actually something that Rand Paul proposed a couple months ago, where he was like, listen, I'm not exactly opposed to sending them help. But he was proposing, let's take like the guy who was kind of in charge of like auditing in Afghanistan during the war, and like, let's put him in charge of the fund. So he like can have kind of an understanding and like discretion over like where it goes and try and keep tabs on the money. That was like Rand Paul's amendment to like the whole sending the thing there. And that got like struck down. No one wanted that. So like,
wonder why.
Not only he wasn't even saying, let's not send them the money. He's like, let's send like an auditor with them just to make sure that they're actually using it.
Can we at least give him an accountant?
Like, I don't understand. Like, right. Can we give them an accountant at least? And that got like struck down. So like, how is that even a bad, like, why is that struck down? You know what I'm trying to say? Like, that makes no sense that it'd be struck down unless you are, doing it for some sort of nefarious or something like that. So this is also going to include $4.5 billion to provide direct budget support to the Kyiv government through the next quarter. That way, President Volodymyr Zelensky administration can pay salaries to essential staff, support Ukrainians fleeing conflict, and cover other critical expenses to help civilians. U.S. President Joe Biden asked Congress earlier this month to provide $11.7 billion in new emergency funding. There's widespread support in Congress from both Biden's fellow Democrats and Republicans for helping Ukraine defend itself. In addition to the previously listed funding, the package, which could be announced soon as later on Monday, which is today, includes $2 billion for the U.S. energy industry. One thing I love about congressmen is like they always put other shit in any bill. There's no such thing as any bill that ever passes without other shit being in it. So this is a bill to provide Ukraine with money for war, and they're also including $2 billion for the U.S. energy industry. And can you
repeat what you just said? How they put other stuff in the bill. It's never so
they never do a one-off bill ever.
Yes, no. And this is my biggest pet peeve with Joe Biden on Twitter, because he'll be like, do you believe that not a single Republican voted for the Inflation Reduction Act? Right. Because you gave it this nice fluffy, nice name doesn't mean like when he gave his speech, inflation was going up and the stock market was crashing. Okay. Yeah. Just because they said the name is Inflation Reduction Act doesn't mean that they were trying to sneak money through this bill into 15 other organizations that benefit their cause and their agenda. And that's why all the Republicans voted no against it. You made the name to make them look bad because you knew they would vote no for this stuff. They manufactured their own talking points for an agenda that
correct.
They
manufacture outrage. Correct.
Yeah.
So let's see, because I'm not even done yet, right? Not only is this going to include $2 billion for U.S. energy industry, one of the sources familiar with the package said the funding request, known as a continuing resolution, would also include resettlement funding for Afghan refugees. In a separate but related authorized request, a U.S. official said the Biden admin also planned to ask Congress for an additional $3.6 billion in presidential drawdown authority, which allows the president to authorize the transfer of excess weapons from U.S. stocks. So not only all those billions, not all of them are even going to Ukraine. A lot of them are, but some of them are going to resettle Afghan refugees. Some of them are going to the energy industry, and some of it's going to be, hey, we have a whole bunch of guns. Let's just give them to you, right? There's a lot going on. We can't
have them. The American people can't have them.
Right. They're going to confiscate them from us and give them to the Ukrainians to fight tyranny. No, I'm not sure the exact total here now at this point, but it's, I think, as I was texting you guys earlier.
Oh, you mean altogether since we gave them the first dollar?
The tab. So the bar tab, if you have the bar tab for Ukraine here in the war, I mean, I think it's pretty close to $100 billion so far since February. It's not even a year yet, and we're close. Maybe it's in the late 80s or the 90s, somewhere there. If you look at Russia's military spending for the year, last year, they spent about $61 billion. So we've sent Ukraine more money to fight this war than Russia's actually spent on their military for the entire year.
So it brings up this thing of corruption. Where's all this money going? If you know what I'm saying?
Why don't you want an accountant sent with it?
Yeah. If we're sending more money for to support the Ukraine military, they should be over there with F-15s, naval ships. The USS, Independence should be over there. Here's the keys. Here's the keys. Just they should be dominating the playing field. This should be over. We spent more. We've lent more in military aid than the opposers spent all year. War's over. You got more money, you got more guns, you got more ammo, you got more bombs because you were able to buy more. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Where's it going?
It is interesting. And I just also think it's just insane. Like, I think, again, like the jig is up, the supermarket's on fire, and they're just robbing the cash registers. And they're telling you everything's fine.
That's why I think this is just people didn't get paid under Trump, and now we're laundering the money.
Yeah. It has to be. Obviously, they're laundering it somewhere. What's the most dangerous thing about this whole thing is the nuclear threat. I know you kind of maybe a little bit dismiss it or whatever, but I
am and I'm not. I don't think Putin is bluffing.
So let me give you a little interesting tidbit here from Vladimir Putin himself. He said in that speech where he was mobilizing all these countries that they're going to have like special referendums in the territories that are under like Russian control. I think they're called like Donetsk, Luhansk, like the areas on the border where the Russians aren't like, basically taken over and we're like kind of in civil war in Ukraine to begin with. He says we're going to have referendums and we're basically going to like annex those regions. When annex means like those regions are going to be part of Russia, right? That are in Ukraine. In the same breath, he also said, if Russia's like territorial integrity is threatened, we'll use nuclear weapons. So he's essentially said, and let's put 2 and 2 together. We're going to take this area where active battle is ongoing, and we're going to make it part of Russia. And then if Russia's threatened, we're going to use nukes to defend ourselves.
So there's already a threat in that area. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what are we doing here? Like, this guy is the craziest, most evil person in the world, according to, everybody in charge right now. Why are we trying to end the world? Right. At the same breath, they're talking about climate change and all these things. Right. We just went to a concert where they preached at us for fucking 3 hours about climate change and the existential threat that it provides to humanity. But a real actual threat, right, of nukes that could theoretically, not actually even theoretically, like could actually end life on Earth, or at least human life on Earth. They're just like a drunk kid with a gun, like just like, pointing at people like, hey, whatever, man, whatever. It's fucking insane, dude. It really is insane.
I don't know what the end result's going to be, because I take do I take what you have to take what Vladimir Putin says seriously? But then again, to my original point, this is such a propagated war that I don't trust it either. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Like,
he's not telling the truth about anything either. He's just putting on his own propaganda,
of course he's
as
not.
well. You just
Of
you work
course
with what
he's
you
not.
have.
It's just
you know,
everything is so propagated at this point. Until the button's pressed, like we have no way of believing it. You know what I'm saying?
and
Like,
that point would be too late.
yeah, exactly. So up until that point, do we just live in fear the way they want us to? Or do we go about our business and fucking barbecue and just get left the fuck alone?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we don't know and we're not going to find out. So, because they're not telling the truth. No one is telling the truth. For all we know, Vladimir didn't even say it. And it was a deep fake video. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I know I'm going off the rails on that one.
Well, they have a
But,
website
like,
that they put stuff out on the Kremlin in English, so that, like we could read it, and they could give propaganda to us technically.
So
I
you know,
think
that's my
like,
point. There's so much propaganda. How can we take it all serious?
I know what you're saying. Like, yeah, we could just like sit. There's not much we could do. Who knows? And like, we kind of just want to sit back and barbecue, like we say all the time, right? Because that's what most people want to do. I guarantee you, like, that's what most people in Russia want to do, right? They want to have a Russian barbecue as well. But like, when it comes to this is why I hate government now and I hate the state. They're awful, right? Because essentially, he's threatening, hey, if our territorial integrity of Russia is threatened, we'll use nukes. What does he really mean, right? Well, he means like if my government is threatened by the West, right, that you're going to like overthrow my government, I'll destroy the whole world just to protect me being in power and my government being in power. Like, but a regular Russian person, they just want to barbecue.
Yeah, they don't want that either.
Right. They just want to barbecue, right? So like, again, going back to Murray Rothbard, you are not the state. The state, you just want to barbecue. The state will destroy the planet to make sure that they get to continue ruling. Like, if they're not going to get to rule over you, fuck it, nuke the place. You know what I mean? Like, it's a fallacy, man, and it's just awful. Like, states are at their worst when they're at war with each other. That's why you should be anti-war, because when they're at war, they're their worst. They'll throw people into the meat grinder. They'll threaten the end of the world. Money gets laundered. People's lives get ruined. It's really just the worst fucking thing. Men get in metal machines and blow each other up. It's the most insane thing.
Yeah, we should try and get like James or Catalyst to come on and stuff, because I don't know a ton about it, but a lot of like Truth Social and Q stuff and things like that and conspiracy theory, they all talk about a scare event, a necessary scare event, and everybody kind of suspects that it might be a scare event of like nuclear fallout or something, where this scare event could turn into something of the sorts of martial law or lockdowns or something. I think it'd be a pretty cool conspiratorial topic to investigate a little bit with them.
Yeah, maybe it'd be interesting to find out. In the same sense, nuclear weapons are real. I know that's one of the fucking crazy conspiracies, that they're not real.
Oh, that no one has nukes?
No, and they're not. I mean, I really hope to God that is the case and they don't exist, right? Because I'd like for there to not be an end of the world button. That'd be nice if that did.
If just everyone was bluffing, that'd be. That's a nice comforting one. To lean in.
I see why people want to believe it, right? I see why they want to go down a rabbit hole, because you probably sleep better at night. I'm so sure of myself. I know this is a conspiracy. There's no such thing as nuclear weapons. I go to sleep nice at night, nicely on my pillow, and I know that there's no chance tomorrow when I'm at work I might just be incinerated in nuclear fire. So yeah, let's move on now, man. Let's wrap it up here, maybe with our tweets of the week. We only got two. We got one each.
And mine's already been spoken about.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It literally says breaking news: we're sending 12 billion to Ukraine.
Great minds think alike, as they say. All right, so I got one. This will kind of lead into our final topic here of the night as well. And this is from Ellen Barkin. The news out of Italy is frightening. It really is 1933, except this time we are Germany. For fuck's sake. #vote. #I never forgot. What is Ellen Barkin talking about? Well, it just so happens in Italy, a woman has become prime minister, has won the Italian national election. A woman has become prime minister for the first time in Italy's history. And I was even saying today, perhaps the first time in the peninsula's history. I don't think any women were in charge back in ancient Rome or any of the Italian kingdoms or anything like that. So for the first time in the peninsula's history, a woman is in charge. Now, you'd think the woke people would be celebrating, right?
Feminists,
what a monumentous
the
occasion.
feminists around the world.
What a monumental occasion. The glass ceiling has been broken on the Italian peninsula. Finally, a woman is in charge. But no, Hitler's back, baby. Mussolini and the party, they've returned. Fascism has returned. Voting in an election is fascism. You know, we have to defend democracy, right? But when
and what political party wants to expand this, pack the Supreme Court, get rid of the Electoral College? I wonder which party that is.
So this is obviously just a different country, right? So yeah, I know what you're saying, but right, you're making a point. Like they want to change the process. So who are we talking about? We're talking about Giorgia Meloni. She's a right-wing, political candidate for prime minister, and she won in Italy.
MIGA, make Italy great again. MIGA.
Yeah. People have, I guess, like compared it to like the Italian Trump. I think like her slogan is like family, religion, nationality,
well,
something
the
like
bit
that.
I've listened to her recently. I've really only come across her today or so. So like, I mean, me and you are Italian. Anybody who knows Italians, family is very important. The Sunday dinner, very religious group of people, God-fearing, church-going. And she was talking about how like being a family unit is under attack. Being a church-going family is under attack. Why is it? Because family defines us outside of government. The government wants us just to be this one owned entity with no identity. We are all one same person under one world government, one world healthcare, one world economy. You know what I mean? And she's fighting against that. I think she said we can't bow down or take the knee in the face of this woke agenda or something like that. I could see why she won. I could see why she's being called far right. She's really not a far right extremist, as every media outlet would say. She's just pro family and pro religion.
Well, that is a terrorist to them.
Yeah. And these are strong values all throughout Italy. Even today in America, me and you aren't we're Italian, but we're not super Italian to the point where like hanging around us for Christmas and Easter is nauseating, because we know Italians like that. But family values hold true in an Italian household. You know what I mean? So she's all pro this, and you're shocked she won. What does that tell you about the people of Italy?
Yeah, so that's the way I'm looking at this thing. Again, I don't really know that much about their internal politics or this lady and her like every policy agenda piece. We got our own problems over here to worry about. But one
I
thing
didn't even know there was an election.
Yeah, it's a barometer, right? Or it's like a temperature, like taking the temperature of the public to see where they're at. And this is like a repudiation of globalism, right? People in Italy must be pissed, right? Yeah. Europe is way more globalist than America is for the most part. And, there's the European Union, like the government has to like do things that the European Union says, like they don't have much autonomy to do things. People don't want that shit anymore. People want their own country, their own nationality, right? They like the idea of family, all those things. So like, if maybe that's not what her policies are actually going to be or what she's really about, but if that's what she actually like represented to people, I think there's some white pill in that they voted for that. And they're like, fuck this shit. We don't want this globalist, whatever the fuck, like, NPC thing. We want like unique individuals.
And
like,
it's shocking.
Again.
Somebody who doesn't toe the line is far right extreme.
Yeah.
They labeled her right away. Far right. Every article I've seen today in American news, extreme right.
Yeah.
So, if wanting to be a member of a family is extreme right, then I guess I'm extreme right.
It is right. That's the way they've built it. So the last point here I'm going to make is some it's from Reuters, and the European Union's von der Leyen delivers veiled warning to Italy's right wing. So if you're not familiar with her, she's like one of the people in charge of the European Union, basically a globalist organization to one extent or another. And European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen has warned Italy of consequences should it veer away from democratic principles, issuing a barely veiled threat ahead of Sunday's election that rightist bloc led by Giorgia Meloni is expected to win. Let me read that one more time. Ursula von der Leyen has warned Italy of consequences should it veer away from democratic principles. So if you veer away from democracy, there will be consequences. How do you veer away from democracy? By voting for someone we don't want you to vote for.
Yep.
That's how you veer away from democracy. We've said it a million times on the show. They don't actually really mean democracy. Like, hey, look, we put your best up against our best, and let you just vote and may the best person win. No, they mean you got to vote for us, and if you don't, you're a fascist. It's all projection. Everything is projection. Everything they claim that you are, that's what they are. That's what this is, and it's insane. So she basically goes on to say that if the new government comes in and wins, they're gonna like sanction Italy. Like you would sanction like
we're gonna punish you
or something,
which
like
is
that.
only gonna wake more people. And once again,
I'm all for
the
it.
globalists can't get out of their own way because you can't leave anything alone. You're only gonna wake more people up, and you're gonna wake up another nation and another country, and the world is watching when this shit happens. So it's going to be interesting to see what these consequences are, because if she's not doing anything wrong and all of a sudden we need to get the adults back in the room and change how Italy's being run because you didn't vote for the right person, what does that say about election integrity? How far off are we from that? What happens in November if the red wave comes? Does Nancy Pelosi just go, no, I can't, in good faith, I can't step down?
Well, they'll probably say the election was stolen. If I'm going to just go with what's been going on here, they're going to be, they're going to, Nancy Pelosi is going to be having stop the steal rallies and, storming the Capitol for an insurrection.
Little side note. The House just passed a bill. So remember when Trump wanted, Mike Pence to not count the electoral votes and reject them and send them back to Washington? And everybody in the media in DC, and now I'm only saying this because I don't know the truth, I don't know how it actually goes, saying that, oh no, he can't do that. The vice president does not have the power or the authority to do such a thing. The House just passed a bill, from what I understand, making it law now that the VP cannot do this. So if he didn't have the power to do it, why do we need to make it a law?
Sorry, I'm looking it up.
Yeah, a little fact checking.
Let's see. House passes bill 5 days ago. House passes bill to prevent efforts to subvert presidential election results. So you're not wrong. The House voted Wednesday to pass an electoral reform bill that seeks to prevent presidents from trying to overturn election results through Congress. The first vote on such an effort since January 6, 2021, blah, 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 blah. It's funny how they frame it as an electoral reform bill, like the same thing that most like Trump and Republicans say we need electoral reform. Then they pass a bill and they call it the
election reform
bill. Yeah, I'm not going to get into it, but you're right. Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to rehash all of January 6th? I mean, I don't know what they thought. Like, the QAnon guy was going to stand at the lectern and be like, "I'm president now." Like, and that just makes him, that just makes Trump president. Like, the whole thing is obviously just an insane, false flag operation, just completely ridiculous. So, yeah.
All righty. All right, Doom Nation. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As always, make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. And check out our newly dropped Doomed review. We're still reviewing the House of the Dragon. So let's get it. Adios, guys.
Later.